Hello again and welcome to another Warlord Wednesdays, the episode of the week where we talk about all things bolt action. And today, guys, I'm going to be talking about the bolt action event that I ran this weekend, which was the Bolt Action Bastards Soft Underbelly 2022 event. And let me tell you guys, it was a lot of fun. Now, this is actually the second Bolt Action event that I've run. The first one was about 3 months ago, and that was the Bolt Action Bastards Shindig of 2022. Now, that was my very first event, and there's going to be a link at the end of this video to the video that I did covering that first event. And again, that was a lot of fun, but obviously it was the first event that I was doing, so I learned a lot of lessons which I took into account when running this event. Now, without further ado, let's dive straight into this thing. Now, the very first thing that I want to say is massive thank you to Warlord Games and Element Games for all of their support for this event. Rupert, the tournament organizer guy over at Element Games, is absolutely fantastic. Constantly in communication, constantly letting me know what hall size they had available, this, that and the other. Was really flexible in terms of me booking it and all this good stuff. So massive thank you to him and massive thank you to Element Games just in general for letting us have our event there. It was absolutely fantastic. And like I said, the support was great. If any of you haven't been to Element Games in Stockport, I highly recommend it. It's one of the older, more venerable gaming shops in the north of the UK. I've been going to events there for over 10 years, and they've got a fantastic paint shop, fantastic shop in general. And let me tell you, the painting section of that shop would make any serious hobbyists get a very uncomfortable feeling in their trousers. And they stock everything from Warhammer to Bolt Action to Armada. Absolutely fantastic shop, so seriously check them out. And you can buy all their stuff online as well, like get like a 10-15% discount. So seriously, really good shop. Can't recommend it enough. If you're in the area, it's a great gaming hall. And they've got a fully licensed bar and fully stocked bar, so if you want to have a few cold ones during the event, you go for it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. It's absolutely fantastic. And of course I want to say a huge thank you to Warlord Games. Now, this was, I think, again, thanks to Element having some contacts at Warlord, but Warlord Games actually came forward and offered some pretty serious prize support for the event. They offered about, for sort of price at retail, about £500 worth of prize support for just our 25-man event, which was just insane. So massive thank you to Warlord Games. That was just absolutely incredible, the level of prize support that came forward. You're going to see the prize support in the pictures as we go forward, but they essentially gave, for the most sporting prize, they gave a £260 dual army starter set, which was incredible. So massive thank you to Warlord Games. Now, this video is going to be a similar format to the ones that I do for all of my event reviews, but of course it's going to be not about Warhammer 40k, it's going to be about Bolt Action. So it's a little bit different. We're talking about like lay of the land and competitiveness and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be very different, but it'll be a similar format to that. And the other thing to mention is, of course, I'm TOing this event. So not only am I playing in it, I'm actually TOing in it. Now, I actually didn't want to TO and play in my own event. I would much rather have just done the refereeing and the tournament organising and all that kind of stuff. Because what I learned from the first time that I ran an event was that it's actually really difficult to play your games and have enough time to do all the refereeing and TOing. And when you are playing games, people are constantly coming up to you and being like, hey, what's this rule? Hey, what's this? What's that? And so it's not as good for your opponent when their game's constantly getting interrupted. Originally, I wasn't going to play, but unfortunately we had some last-minute dropouts. A couple of people got COVID. One person unfortunately had to drop out due to another commitment. And so I ended up having to fill in. So it wasn't too bad, but I had to say it was certainly difficult TOing and playing, considering that the event, in a funny sort of way, had doubled in size from the last one. Now, the last event we had 18 people turn up, but every single one of those was a friend or a family, and they had been involved in the sort of pre-event discussion and everything. So everyone knew exactly what was going on, what to expect, and was very lenient with me because they knew it was my first event. This second one, whilst there was only like 22 people that turned up in the end, only about half of those people were friends and family, which meant whilst the event only had about 4 more players turn up, of those players, half of them were totally new. So in a funny sort of way, I like to think that the event doubled. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but you know, it's like enough people, half of them that turned up, I'd basically never met before. Some of them I'd known from like years ago, but hadn't met before, hadn't attended an event before. So obviously, there's a bit more of an expectation. You've got to do things a bit better because these people aren't going to give you as much leniency or forgiveness because, you know, at the end of the day, you're running an event, so you need to be on it. So the format of the event was, it was a 1 day, 3 game event, and each round there was about 2.5 hours with about 15 minutes to 20 minutes break between each round. So plenty of time for players to go and have a smoke break or a drink or toilet, whatever, and plenty of time for each round. And we played 1 game and then we had lunch for an hour and then we played 2 more games. And people said that the day absolutely flew by, which is really good. Not only were they having fun, but I found that some tournaments will run like 2 games in the morning and then lunch 1 in the afternoon. I feel that really drags on. I definitely think it's better to have 1 game and then lunch. People are happy and fat and contented, and then the afternoon just breezes by because they're all happy and they're not hungry or anything like that. So that's how we ran the event there. Now, in terms of the missions, I actually randomized them each time because last time I put the missions in the rules pack and people really, well, not everyone, but one of the people really tailored their list around the missions. So this time I was like, we're not having that. You need to build an army that can be ready for anything. You might get 3 attacker defender missions in a row. You might get 3 battle missions in a row. You don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be 3 totally random missions. And in terms of how the event was run and how people actually won the event, it was a team event. So all of the Allies players were on one team. All of the Axis players were on another team. There were an equal number of Allies and Axis. So when people were submitting lists, I asked everyone to submit, everyone who could submit 2 lists. And that way, and I said, be prepared for either one. I'll let you know ahead of the event which team you're on and which list you're going to be using. But submit 2 lists for me to review, and then I can make sure that there's an equal number of Allies players and an equal number of Axis players. I also had as part of sign up for the event, you had to state your level of experience as a player. So we had 4 levels of experience that were based on the bolt action veterancy levels. So we had green, inexperienced, regular, and veteran. Now, inexperienced meant that I've not played much war games before. I've not played much bolt action before. I've probably never been to an event before. This could very well be my first 10 games of bolt action. It's basically people who have almost never played the game before, but have an idea of how the rules work. Regular is, I've played bolt action before. I might have played an event before, or at least I play once a month kind of regularly. I'm not an expert. I'm not super competitive, but I know the rules well enough. And then veteran is, right, I have played bolt action competitively before. I am going to be bringing quite a good list, and I'm going to be really, really on the rules. I know the rules like the back of my hand. And then green is a bit of an interesting one. Green is like inexperienced. I've not played much bolt action before at all, but I have played lots of other games before. So what you tend to find is a lot of people who put down green are people who I would call like 40k refugees, people who traditionally have played a lot of 40k, they know tabletop games, they know tournaments really well, but they've not played bolt action in that format before. So we had a few people who were down at green as well, which is great. Now, the reason I asked people to submit their veterancy, their experience level, is because I wanted to balance the teams. So I didn't want all the inexperienced people on one team versus all the veteran people on another team. And again, that's why I was asking people to submit 2 lists, because it'd be like, you might have loads of people who are inexperienced who sign up on like on the Axis team, and loads of people that sign up as like veteran on the Allies team. But sorry guys, I'm going to have to switch you around, because even though you might prefer it, like I've got to make sure that these teams are as balanced as possible. And I've done that twice now, and both times no one's ever had an issue with me switching the team, and both times it's actually led to a really balanced event, and it comes down to like the wire, which team's going to win it. Now, in terms of how a team could win the event, it was pretty simple. We tallied up the number of wins that each side got in a round. So let's say there's 11 games, and then if the Allies win 6 and the Axis win 4, and then there's a draw, then the Allies have won that round, they get a win. And it basically comes down to who can win the most rounds. It's a best of 3. That means if one team does win 2 rounds in a row, then they might not, then the event is over. The Allies have won the event, but at least let's say the Axis get the chance to fight for some glory and some honour. Now, interestingly, both times that I've done this event now and I've done this system, one side has won round 1, and then one side has won round 2, and then the other, and then it's come down to a round 3 every single time, which is pretty crazy. That it's just, I've not been fixed or done that in any way. That's just happened naturally. And I think that's happened because of the fact that I've balanced the teams out with that whole veterancy and that experience, and I've been quite careful with what lists people can submit and all that crazy kind of stuff. So that's sort of the formatting and how people can win the events. There's a few tiebreakers and stuff. So if it's a draw, it then comes down to which side scored the most mission points. That's like victory points in like 40k. And then if that happens to be a draw as well, then it comes down to kill points. And kill points is literally how many units were wiped out on each side. And whoever scored the most kill points, that's the final tiebreaker. If it's still a draw at that point, then that round is a draw. That's it. So there's a lot. It's very rarely that it would come down to a pure draw, but like there's lots of opportunities to try and give the side an opportunity to win. But it is there. It can happen. It can happen, and hasn't happened yet though. To be fair, so I think that format works quite well because it gives me multiple layers, multiple levers to pull, to pull on the tournament to make sure that we get a clear winner each time. Now, another thing that I did in terms of tournament organisation and formatting for the event is I was quite strict with the power of lists that were allowed to be submitted. I was very clear in the rules pack, and I was very clear on like Facebook posts and stuff leading up to the event that this was what I would call a beginner event +1. Okay. You have a lot of people that turn up to bolt action events who have never played an event before, and some people who have never played bolt action before. We had multiple people who have literally they've learned bolt action by playing at this event or the last event. So what happens is I ask everyone to submit their list 2 weeks early, because even though it's a 22, 25 man event, each person is submitting 2 lists, or at least half people submit. Some people only have 1 army, right? So it's almost like I'm have to review lists of like 40 people, and the condition tends to be like, look, are you turning up and you're spamming loads of flamethrowers and loads of crazy stuff? Are you turning up like pure bamboo spear fighter Japanese? Right, that's a bit too strong, mate. Like, you can't do that. So I'm pretty careful. Now, I don't know everything about bot action, but I know enough to be able to be like, right, yeah, that's quite a strong list. Obviously, some things do slip through, and I don't mind people bringing a strong list. But I do also throw things back and go, look, if you can tone that down slightly, that's great. Now, another thing that I also do is I limit the amount of theatre special units that you can bring. Some of the theatre rules and some of the theatre units you can bring are really, really powerful, and they are a little imbalanced, to be honest. So, but people want to be able to use them. And at the end of the day, we were running an Italy-themed event. So what I said is, you can run any list. Every list should use the generic reinforced platoon, but you can run up to 3 theatre-specific units for this army, and it has to be ones that are related to Italy or North Africa. Or if you are really, really wanting to use a theatre selector and go all in on a special list, that's absolutely fine. But you have to show me and convince me that you've taken this list for rule of cool, and you have to explain why it's rule of cool, and you have to explain in detail what the special rules are you get for this special detachment and how you're not abusing them. And I had a couple of people who submitted lists under that format, and they were absolutely fine, not a problem, and there were no issues whatsoever. I had one person who wanted to submit like a Royal Marine Commando list, and I was like, yeah, it's absolutely fine. You've not abused this in any way, shape or form. You put like demolition charges and like silent stens and stuff on your guys. That's great. That's probably not actually ever going to come up in this event, but there are some chances you can blow a building up. I'm okay with you demo charging a building. That's not the end of the world. So that gives you an idea of the sort of formatting and the competitiveness that I was going for with this event. I was very much being careful with letting people run away with some of the more creative, like no one was allowed more than 1 flamethrower, for example. Even the Italians who take like dual flamethrower squads, I would have been like, okay, you get 1 dual flamethrower squad, but you can't take anything else. So it might seem kind of harsh, but it's this level of community policing that I find really, really effective at making bot action a nice place to come and play. How many times have you gone to an event and you've seen someone with a beautifully fully fluffed up list, or you've run a fully fluffed up list, and you've just got absolutely beans. And yeah, it was fun for a while, but no one wants to go to a 2-day event with a fluffy list, because after the first day you're like, well, I'm definitely not going to win anything. Do you know what I mean? It's not as good. Whereas when you've got this level of sort of community policing at your Bolt Action event, I find it's really effective, because people are like, I know I can turn up with a themed fluffy list and I'm not going to get just buggered constantly. I know that when I go to one of these Bolt Action Bastard events, that the power level is going to be great, and that loads of people are going to be turning up with themed lists and nice lists, and they're not stupid or bad lists. A lot of them are just very strong, but you know, they're not overpowered and no one's abusing any of the game mechanics. Like, one person submitted a list that had like 3 or 4 sources of HE, and I was like, dude, you can't have taken the piss with the amount of HE. I know HE spam's really strong. I'll let you take a maximum of like 2 medium, medium houses, the equivalent, you know. And then he basically went, okay, now I'm just going to completely redo my list. I had one guy that turned up with a medium howitzer and a priest, which is another medium howitzer, and I had no issue with that, because I was like, okay, you've brought this, but you're actually very low on anti-tank in other areas. So if you actually come across a tank, you're really going to be struggling if your HE doesn't pull it out of the bag. So again, it's just this level of community policing that I think makes the Bolt Action events just more fun. You know, no one goes to an event and gets absolutely smashed. No one gets absolutely smashed. No one gets tabled in like a turn or two or anything like that. And it's just down to like I say, this sort of level of community policing. If Bolt Action explodes, I imagine it's going to be a lot harder to do that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, if some people want to run a cutthroat event, they can run a cutthroat event. But right now, Bolt Action is in that place. It's that perfect place at the beginning where the community is like really nice. Everyone's on the same level. Everyone has the same vibe and gets it. So it's just nice right now. But yeah, I know I made kind of a big deal out of that, but I just wanted to really sort of get that across. And I said that first thing in the briefing. I said it twice. I went, so just to be clear, guys, we call this an event, not a tournament. And I paused, and then I went, I'm going to say that again. This is a social event. It is not a tournament. You are all here to have a good time and play with your plastic soldiers. The biggest prize at this event is most sporting. The next biggest prize is for the coolest army award. Okay? Take that into account and get the vibe of the event. And everyone, just by spelling it out and just taking a moment and saying it seriously, because I had quite a jokey briefing, and then I just said, serious moment, guys. And everyone got it, and everyone went to the games, and everyone just had a great time. So it's just, that's what I want to do with my events, guys. That's what I want to do. They're meant to be fun. You know, that's the whole point. They're meant to be fun. So with that in mind, the list that people turned up with were actually really, really cool. And we had a number of just fantastically themed armies that turned up. So we had one Italian player turn, that's Simon, the chap in the purple shirt that you'll see with the pictures. And he actually won coolest army, and he deserved it. If you're the only person that turns up with a pretty fluffy, pure Italian black shirt list, and you've actually gone into the effort of researching what weapons this actual unit had. I can't remember, so it wasn't like the Julia division, but it was a specific division, and he had all the right equipment and all the right markings, and he'd gone all in, and he'd just done a fantastic job on this army. Not only do you deserve to win Coolest Army because you're the only guy that brought Italians to the Italian event, but you actually also went all in on your army as well. So he actually won Coolest Army, which was fantastic. And then there was some other fantastic armies as well. There was a chap that brought a Luftwaffe army, and it was all Fallschirmjäger. Every single guy had like a Panzerfaust and like an FG-42. Each one of his guys was like 20 points each. It was insane. And he only had like 20 infantry, two transports, and a Stug. And he only had like 6 dice, and he got absolutely buggered every single game. But his theme behind his list was, these are like Hermann Goering's like hand-picked men who Hermann Goering has realised that Italy's going to fall. And he was like, okay, boys, I want you to go into Italy, get all of my like stolen art and my wine collection and all that stuff. I want you to go and get it, sling it in the back of the transports and bring it back. Because it's like such a Hermann Goering thing to do, to send the best of the best, the absolute cream of your crop to not go and fight the enemy, but to go and recover your like personal art collection. And it was so good, like the theme behind the army was amazing. And then we had Commando James, who's a guy that I'm hoping if you haven't seen my bolt action battle report, seriously go and check it out. He's really interesting. He's absolutely fantastic when it comes to modelling and everything. And he was running his pure infantry Royal Marine Commandos. And we call him Commando James because he's in the Royal Marines, but also because he loves Royal Marine Commandos. And he collects them. But actually, I think he's got like 100, like he's got like every Royal Marine model you can think of. But actually, he must. I mean, you only need about 30 to make up a full army. And he must have like 70 or 80 at this point. All of them individually customized and built. Just absolutely beautiful army. And now he's got into his Germans, and now his Germans are the same. Just it really like great hobbyist and great player, and one of my personal best friends. I've known him for over 20 years, so absolutely fantastic bloke. So there's loads of just people like that. I genuinely couldn't point to one person that brought like an overpowered or broken list. Like there was one person that brought a Nebelwerfer, but that's fine. There were a couple of people that brought like strong-ish British lists, but that was fine. I'd say one of the strongest lists that was there was my Japanese list. Now, I didn't want to use the Japanese in the event because it's an Italy event. But basically, someone dropped out, and then someone didn't tell me what they were bringing ahead of time, even when I like messaged them and everything. Turned out he was just an absolutely top bloke. He was just a bit technologically illiterate and didn't submit a list in time. But I guessed he was going to be on the Axe team. It turned out he's actually a chap called Pete North. And he was an older chap, and he was in the Paras in the 70s, and then his son is in the Paras now, and the army he was using was the Paras. And I was like, okay, well, I was expecting to bring allies myself, so now I need to switch team. The only other Axe, I've already lent my Germans out to someone, so the only other spare, like, Axis army I have is Japanese. So the Japanese were there, apparently, and they were my Japanese list is kind of strong because it's a lot of Banzai boys. But the thing is that I made it so the Japanese couldn't win the event. And the first thing was that the chap that I lent my Germans to, he doesn't like the Germans, he prefers using the Japanese. He lost his first game and said, dude, can I switch? And I went, have you lost your first game? And I went, yeah. And I went, no problem then, because basically it means the Japanese then can't win the event because the player that's using them has already lost a game. And the other thing is that if I had to use them throughout the event, just so you guys know, I actually take myself out of all prize support. Even if I win every single game and I should be in line to get that free starter army and all that kind of stuff, I will remove myself from all prize support because it's just a thing that I have, and I know a lot of TOs don't do this, and I have no issue with how other TOs run the event. I mean, everyone runs them differently. But for me, I always feel it's a bit funny when someone gets loads of prize support together, then organises an event. They know the ins and the outs and how the terrain's going to be and everything, and then they win loads of prize support at their own event. It's like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't. For me personally, I have no issue with other people doing it, but for me, I'm just too soft. I can't do that. So basically, even if I run my Japanese, and I'm pretty confident if I run them, I could have won the event because it's, Japanese are insane if you're not prepared for them. I couldn't because I'd take myself out of all prize support, which is perfect. So, but like I said, the Japanese were the only list that were kind of strong. They did smash everyone they came across, but it didn't matter because they couldn't win. So there you go. Because I wasn't going to have the bloody Japanese turn up and win the mid-war Italian-themed event. Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. Now, speaking of some other stuff, for the last thing to mention is it was a mid-war event, which meant that you couldn't bring anything, any units or any equipment from after 1943. So you could run anything up to December 31st, 1943, but nothing in 1944, nothing in 1945. That was really interesting because it meant that the Germans didn't get access to things like King Tigers. They didn't get access to things like STG 44s. A lot of German players said it was really weird not being able to use the STG 44s, and it actually encouraged people to bring things that they wouldn't normally bring, like Fallschirmjäger, because Fallschirmjäger do get access to assault rifles. They get access to the FG 42. So it was one of those things where you actually saw people bringing units they wouldn't normally bring. Most people just go, yeah, veteran infantry, STG 44s, off we go. I did allow people to bring Panzerfaust, but as per the recommendation in the Warlord Soft Underbelly book, I actually made it so because they were a prototype Panzerfaust, they only had a 6-inch range rather than a 12-inch range. Warlord changed them so that they're like 3 points, and to make up for that. But I actually didn't bother. I just said, look, they're just 5 points. You just only get a 6-inch range. The thing is, Easy Army doesn't really take that into account. I don't want people sort of messing around with their army list or me having to like manually check things. Look, guys, Panzerfaust are still 5 points, but they're only 6-inch range. Just deal with it. And no one had any problems with that, and they understood it was to make list checking easier. So that's kind of all the formatting and everything of the event. Now, who won the event? Now, it was a really, really good day, and Allies actually had quite a significant victory in the first round, and the first mission was key positions, which is basically like Warhammer 40k. There's like it's D3 plus 2 objectives. Whoever holds the most objectives wins the game. The second game was sectors, which is where it's a really interesting mission. There's no deployment. You can come on from any board edge essentially, and at the end of the game, if you've got units in the no man, you get like one sector which is called like your sector, and the sectors are the table quarters, by the way. So you get one table quarter which is your table quarter. You get no points for holding that one, but you get points for holding all the other table quarters, which is really cool. And Axis absolutely smashed it. Like, it wasn't even, the first round was pretty close. It was like 4 victories to the Allies, like 3 to the Axis, and the rest were like draws. It was like, okay, there's quite a lot of draws there. Axis absolutely smashed it in the second round. It wasn't even close. It was like 8 victories to the Axis, 3 to the Allies. And I was like, wow, that's big. That's a big win. And then it was the final round. It was so good. People were handing their score sheets into me, and I was typing them into the Excel doc with all the formulas in it. And it was literally going 1 Axis victory, 1 Allies victory, as people were finishing their games, right? It was literally going 1 and 1. And it came down to the final score, which was my brother with his Brits facing off against Simon, the guy in the purple shirt, with his Italians. And I just said, as I went, guys, because everyone else had finished and these guys still played, I was like, all right, guys, I don't mean to alarm anyone, but whoever is going to win this event comes down to the Italians. I was like, the Axis are relying on the Italians in order to be able to win this game. And at the point of the event, it was actually like really, really close between the two players. And it actually came down to literally like the one side won by just enough victory points. Like, normally you have to win by a clear 2 victory points in order to win. If you only win by 1 victory point by action, it's a draw. And one side won it by just 2 victory points, and it was the Brits. So the Allies won the event overall, which is really, really good. The Allies actually won the last one as well, so it's 2-0 for the Allies. So the Axis really need to step their game up. But the thing is, a lot of the Axis players that I know bring really wacky lists. Like last time we had someone who brought the last levy of Berlin, so it was all like Hitler Youth and Volkssturm backed up by a King Tiger. This time we had, Hermann Goering's personal art division. So the Axis players, they tend to bring sort of crazier lists, because I tend to see that's kind of the way with like Axis players. They're not too bothered about winning. They just want to bring all the Wunderwaffen and all that kind of good stuff. So Allies did win overall, and they got some Gucci little laminated certificates, which were great. And then in terms of who won the other prizes, so how you win, what prizes are available in the event? There's the Victoria Cross, and you actually get you get a replica medal, as well as now the prize support that we got from Warlord. You get a replica medal. So the Victoria Cross is the best general, and that is the person that just won all the games and had the highest mission points overall. So just straight up, just smashed it. You then have what is essentially second place, which is the Order 227 award, which is you get a replica Soviet star, and that is the person that won all their games, but lost the most units doing it. They lost the most kill points. Now those 2 prizes are exclusive. I make sure that it's in sort of first and second, so like that. People can't win more than 1 prize, generally speaking. It's just for those 2 really. And then also I had the wooden spoon, which is a Purple Heart, and you win a Purple Heart award. And then you have the most sporting award, which is also known as the Mark Felton Award. Now, those of you that are aware of Mark Felton, he's a very famous YouTuber, internet historian YouTuber, and he's a bit of a hero for our game group, so we call it the Mark Felton Award. You win a copy of his book, which is pretty awesome. And then we had most sport, and then we had Tank Ace, where you win an Iron Cross. And then we had Coolest Army, which is where you win the Medal of Gallantry, the sort of, it's like the British Cross kind of thing. And so that's the medals that you get. Now, in terms of the prize support that Warlord gave, for Best General, for the Victoria Cross, they gave out a British and Canadian starter set, which is worth like £109. And you get a full British and Canadian army, which is amazing. And then for second place, you won the most games, but you lost the most guys, they gave the, it was a special themed unit called the MASH unit, which is basically the medical unit. So basically, yeah, you won as a games, but here's a medical unit because you lost so many people. And that's worth about 30 quid, which is pretty cool. And then for the Purple Heart, they gave out some farmyard animals because you were like a lamb to the slaughter. And then for the Tank Ace, they gave out a Jagdtiger, which is really, really cool, super heavy tank for the Germans. Very, very, very appropriate. And then for the medal for the Best Army Award, they actually didn't have they didn't. I added the Best Army Award in, the Coolest Army Award in. Because they gave an extra prize and I didn't have anything for it. So I said, right, I'll give this one out to the Coolest Army. And they gave a US Airborne starter, which is still worth about 80 to 90 quid. So if you won the Coolest Army, you've still got like a 1,000-point starter army set, which is really, really awesome. But the main prize, the most coveted one, was for Most Sporting. And Warlord insisted, when they saw we had a Most Sporting prize, they absolutely insisted that the Most Sporting prize had to be the biggest prize, because they really wanted to encourage the hobbying side and the Most Sporting. When I told them about adding in the Coolest Army, they were like, yeah, that's a good prize for Coolest Army because it's quite a big one, getting a starter army. But for Most Sporting, they gave the Longest Day box set, which is a £260 box set, which contains 2 full armies and terrain and everything to recreate the D-Day landing, or any landing really, any beach landing. It's so generous that they gave it out. It's absolutely incredible. And that was actually won. That was won by someone who really, really did deserve it. So going through who won what, a chap called Andy Miller won Best General, and he was using Brits, and he won a Victoria Cross, which is very good. He was using Commandos backed up by some light armour, which was a strong list, but it wasn't an overpowered list, so that was pretty good. Him and Johnny, my brother, were actually neck and neck for winning that prize, and Johnny really wanted the Victoria Cross, but the Italians in Johnny's last game held him up, and he ended up not winning it, which was gutting for him. But Andy Miller, absolute top bloke. I've known him, I don't know him very, very well, but we used to play 40k together back in Liverpool, and he's been playing about action for a while, and he absolutely smashed it, and he's a really, really nice guy. So it was great that he won it, and I'm actually kind of glad that he won it, because him and a few others from his gaming group came over to the event. They travelled from Liverpool, which is about an hour drive, and it was quite good having the merging of almost 2 gaming groups. You see, the Bolt Action Bastards are actually already made up of 2 gaming groups that have merged. The Bolt Action Bastards is the Bolt Action group that I'm part of. It was originally some people down the Midlands, and then my mate Alex, who I learned through YouTube, actually got me into Bolt Action, and then I got loads of people from my game with Bolt Action. So that's actually a merging of 2 groups, and I'm kind of hoping that the Mersey Bolt Action players, the Merseyside Bolt Action players, will join in the Bolt Action Bastards now, and it'll be great to have this expanding Bolt Action scene. And and there was also several other groups of people that turned up as well. And so I'm hoping that these Bolt Action Bass events become actually bigger and bigger and bigger, because through the merging of all these separate chapters, these disparate groups, because there's a lot of separate people playing Bolt Action, but I want to bring them all together. So I was really happy that Andy won that, because now and I said, if you win the Victoria Cross, you've got to come back to the next event. You've not got a choice. He said he absolutely was going to. So He won that, which is great. And it's good because, you know, it's almost like one person from each gaming group like won something. So he won that, and then my brother Johnny, he won the Order 227, so he got the MASH unit, and he actually won the tank case one as well. I didn't mind having those as non-exclusionary, because tank case is a bit separate to winning the coming second. So he won. He killed 3 tanks over the course of the event. Everyone else only killed like 2, which is pretty cool. And then he had. So he won 2 events. So he actually now has a campaign medal. I should say there was an Italy star available that people could just buy. So I sold tickets for 15 quid a pop, and I said you can buy a medal on top of that for a tenner, totally optional. And people loved it and they got it at the beginning of the event, and they wore it throughout the event. So Johnny throughout the event was wearing his Italy star, but there were a couple of people who had medals from the last one. So you had Aston, who had like a purple heart and an Italian star as well, and then you had people who had like the Iron Cross and the Italy star as well. So it's really cool seeing people build up this chest of medals. And Johnny now has an Italy star, a Soviet star, and an Iron Cross. So if he turns up to the next event and buys another campaign medal, he's going to have like a chest of 4 medals, which is really, really cool. And then one of my close friends called Will Livesey, he's like sort of in our he's sort of in the Bolt Action group. He's kind of like a separate group coming together. Him and James are coming together into the Bolt Action Bastards. He actually won the Wooden Spoon, and he actually has played. I like to joke, he's a hardcore tournament player because he's only played at events, but he's only played in the last 2 events that I've run, and he's got no practice games. So he really needs to play some practice games. So he won something which is pretty cool. And even though, and you still get a badass purple heart, and you still get he's now got a purple heart and an Italian star as well, and you still win something. You get those farming animals, which are really, really cool. So that's good. And then so we had what do we have? Oh, and then like I said, the Italian player Simon, he won. He won Coolest Army, which is fantastic. He really deserved it. I'm actually really good friends with Simon. And so now he's got his British powers, he's got his Italians, and now he's got US powers as well, which is really, really cool. So he's got like, a lot of airborne stuff as well. And so he just collects cool armies now. Do you know what I mean? But really glad. Now you actually see the picture if you see the picture rolling around of us like holding up the prize pot together, we both look a little bit off in the picture. It's not because we were falling out or anything. Actually, like I said, we're really, really good friends. But he was on the phone to a client. He got a phone call from a client, and he was like literally on the phone, like trying to organise things with him. And I went, dude, you've got to come and get your prize. He was like, for the photo. It's like, okay. So we quickly ran over. We quickly took the photo, and then he had to go off again. He's literally read to his client, went, excuse me 1 second. I've just got to put it on hold for a second. Put the client on hold for a second, and then was like, okay, yeah, I'm back again now. But then the big prize went to a really nice chap called Aston. Now Aston actually got the purple heart in the last event, and he got absolutely smashed. Like, he literally, I think, had like 3 victory points overall. Got utterly buggered in the last event, and so he lost so badly that we actually nicknamed the purple heart the Aston Award. And when I was reading the awards out, I actually went, now this is so. Now we've got the lambs to the slaughter. We've got the purple heart, the wooden spoon. Now, normally we call this the Aston Award because of how badly he got smashed at the last event. And so Aston, I know you're itching to come up here and get your award. And he actually stepped forward to come and get it. And I went, but you didn't win it this time. It went to Will Livesey, resident tournament player, but he probably should play some practice games. But then I was like, but don't worry. Then Will came and got the picture. I went, but don't worry, Aston, because you did win something pretty big. You may not have got the purple heart, but apparently people love playing against you, man. So you won most sporting. He won the longest day set, which is absolutely fantastic. And he totally deserved it because he's such a chill. He's just so chill. Do you know what I mean? And actually at the last event, he was like 1 award off getting most sporting. So he's clearly just an absolute pleasure to play against. I actually haven't had the opportunity to play against him myself yet, but clearly he's just an absolute pleasure to play against because people are handing in like most sporting votes for like a guy that they haven't even played just because they've seen the way he is around the table. He's just really chill. He's super chill. I always like to joke he looks a bit like a Vietnam vet, but like it's like and one of our friends was like, it's good to see the Vietnam veterans actually getting their parade now. But yeah, absolutely chill blog. And asking if you're watching this, very well deserved. I had multiple people come up to me throughout the event and say that bloke asked an absolute top man, like totally, I want to give him my most sporting and all that kind of good stuff. And that was basically it, guys. That was the event. So Allies won, prizes went to everyone. In terms of my games, I actually did win all of my games. I smashed someone with smashed Pete North with the Japanese, and then I played against a chap called Dan Large, really nice guy, who had his American artillery company, which was pretty fun. And I made the copious use of the ambush order. One thing I learned from this event, guys, and I'm going to do a full video on this later, but one thing I learned was that 7-man German squads with just like an LMG and a Panzerfaust in them are actually really point sufficient, because you just stick them on. It's like having loads and loads of MMG teams, but if someone snipes the MMG out, it doesn't really matter, because you can just run around like a sergeant with an SMG and a Panzerfaust, and they just go from being like an assault, like a defensive squad, to like a semi-assault squad, and it really made a difference. Even though I actually never got to fire the Panzerfaust, it made a big difference because my opponents were. I dug my regulars with these LMGs into cover, and then my enemies didn't want to get close with the tanks because they were like, well, shit, there's a Panzerfaust there. So I'll go do a full video on that. But yeah, I won my next 2 games. And I just say, like, it was just a lot of fun. Yeah, but like I said, I mean, I probably was in line for like the Victoria Cross and like winning a starter army, but that's not how I roll, guys. You know, I've run the event and everything. You know, people have paid to come to an event, and then I start winning all the prize support. That's a bit, you know, it's a bit dodgy, isn't it? So there you go. Now, in terms of like when I'm going to be running like the next one and other stuff, hopefully there's going to be a chance to run another one at like Element Games. I really like running them at Element because they've got a great relationship with Warlord, and they've got a great I've got a great relationship with the people at Element. But I also like it because the terrain they've got there is really it's really good for bot action. Like, they have enough terrain to do. I mean, we had 11 tables, and a lot of them were green ones. But if I did more urban ones and stuff, they probably have enough terrain for me to do about 15 to 16 tables, which is not bad. That's that. Now you're looking at like a 30-person event, which if I get like 30 people turning up to bolt action, that's like really big. I think when LGT did bolt action, like part of the whole like big event that they did, they only had like 40 or 50 people turn up. So if I can get 30 to 40 people turn up to my event, I'll be pretty bloody stoked. Now I'm hoping that I can just keep coaxing people to come along, and the next one I'm going to run is going to be like a Normandy one. So if anyone's interested in coming to one of my events, this is the format that I do. It's if it's either, depending on the availability that Element's got, because they might not be available when I need them to be. Either I'm going to run one in Q3 of 2022 and one in Q4, or if they've only got one slot available, I'm going to run like 1 2-day event in like Q4. Now, the events that I run, like, you know the format of them, they're very noob friendly. I describe them as noob friendly events. I've had multiple people turn up to my events who have literally not played a game of action before, and I pair them against people who I know, because I do all the pairings semi-randomly. I randomize it, and then if I get like a and then there are some people who don't don't want to play each other, not for any bad reason, because they play each other all the time. So I mix things up a little bit like that. So what I would say is, like, if you are into bot action but you've not played before, please consider coming down. If you're a veteran player, please consider coming down. It's always good to have more experienced people come and help out, because what I always say is the veteran players need to help the inexperienced ones. I don't want to see veteran players seal clubbing. I want to see veteran players helping out inexperienced players. But the format is, it's 1 day, it's 3 events, it's 15 quid. It's 1 day, 3 games. It's 15 quid for a ticket. If you want to guarantee to have a medal, it's a tenner on top. And there's loads and loads of prize support, and they're a really good vibe. Now, so I know it's a bit of a shameless plug, guys, but honestly, if you're feeling a bit sick of 40k, you want a palate cleanser, I cannot recommend bolt action enough. But that's it. We're going to end the video there, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. As always, if you have enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Any extra interactivity really helps boost the video. And if you really enjoyed the video and want to see more bot action content, then please consider signing up and becoming a channel member. It's thanks to my channel members and Patreon supporters that I'm now actually doing this thing, Mordian Glory, full time, which is crazy. It still blows my mind. So massive thank you to all of my current channel members and Patreon supporters. And I want to just take a moment and do a quick shout out to our latest channel members and Patreon. So massive thank you to Tent, Ian Hawkins, Paul Savage, Panzerkampfwagen, Baneblade, Trichroma and Castellan for signing up and becoming channel members. Absolutely fantastic, guys. I really, really appreciate the extra support. And I also want to say thank you to our latest Patreon supporters as well. Naril, Alex Dengal, Gangastani, Ben Thorne, Alon Harfin, Marcus Roberts and Timber de Jägermeister. And I also want to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of our top tier Patreon supporters. These are the people that have gone above and beyond, way above and way beyond the call of duty when it comes to supporting the Mordian Glory channel. So I want to say a personal thank you to August Varney, to Alex Dengal, to John Stubbs, to Nicholas Walsh, and to Swordfish Trombone for being signed up at the Lord General level, the top tier of Patreon support. Guys, it's incredible. Your generosity is humbling. And I also want to say a special thank you to our commissars. Those people have also signed up at a really high level of Patreon support. So thank you to Diesel Fox, to Tom Sutton and to Ross Miller for signing up at the commissar level. Guys, I really, really appreciate the support that you give me. So massive thank you to all my supporters. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and as always, I'll see you guys next time.